I would love to learn more about are any quality issues you're willing to share, because that's a really big piece of this class and what students are learning about in
Okay.
school. And they really need to know, how can they kind of put their total quality management hats on and avoid any kind of risky situation. So can you share any fun or interesting stories on quality and maybe your tips and tricks as far as how to avoid quality issues?
Right. So all of our products that we have a standard operating procedure that we put in place in order to train our employees on how to make the product, and then how it should move through our production process on a daily basis. So it starts with making sure that that's well documented and that our folks are well trained on how the processes work. Ultimately, that comes back to the quality assurance team on the back end to verify that everything in front of them has been done correctly. And like I said, for the most part, we're pretty good at that. We do have some catastrophic events that happen from time to time. As I mentioned earlier, we can put 1,000 shirts into a washing machine, and we can and they generally all come out very well on a daily basis. But every now and again, you can run across an event like a power failure, of which you can't get the goods out of the machine, and they're kind of stuck in there for a period of time until the power comes back on. So those type of catastrophic events will basically ruin that entire load. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. There's some things you just can't get rid of, and that's one of them. That's happened to us a handful of times over the last, 10, 20 years that we've been in business. I could still probably count it on one hand how many times that has occurred, but when it does, it's pretty traumatic, and it causes some issues for our customers. And I guess probably the one that's most memorable to my mind is we have a lot of Canadian geese that fly around our particular area. And one of the events that caused a power outage is because we had a Canadian geese that flew into a power line and transformer, and obviously the geese didn't make it, and it also cut our power out for a better part of a day. So that's probably the most memorable one I can think of.
Things you wouldn't think about.
Right.
Your point, definitely can't avoid this type of situation. I know we talked a little bit about, who's buying your products, but do you actually, have your product in retail stores, or do you work with any local retailers? There's so many big businesses here in Columbus who might be chasing into particular styles. How does that relationship work for you here in town?
Gotcha. Yeah, we've worked with a lot of the major retailers here in town at some point or another. Their businesses sourcing product from overseas, but occasionally they'll use us for chase business or development. And that's, the usual suspects here on the east side of town there, which is, Limited Brands and Pink and Justice, Abercrombie. All those guys have used us at one point in time. We've also worked with kind of the smaller guys like Homage, and done some kind of one-off events for those over the years. So that's how we have worked with the local teams. We also, because we distribute through a lot of other decorators or wholesale, like I mentioned earlier in our chat, those goods get purchased and decorated and then put into the other retail channels. So if you go into like Zoomies and PacSun and other type of surf skate events, our products pretty dominant in their floor sets right now.
That's so neat. So neat to know that you were the start of some of those products. And I would love to know a little bit more about, we've talked about quality control, but there's sort of that end piece as far as, packing and where warehousing goes. So, could you share a little bit more about that sort of final piece of the puzzle after you've done a lot of your color fastness and your wash testing and kind of passed all those pieces of the puzzle?
Sure. So once the goods pass our quality assurance, yes, they're boxed up and put into cases, and then those cases are either go into one or two channels. They're either put into our internal warehousing system, where they're sitting on the shelf and waiting for someone to place an order for pick, pack, and ship in a small quantity, or they go into basically palletized, and they're waiting to be shipped to our customers in bulk. So those are the two kind of channels that we go in. And like I mentioned earlier, we have teams that handle the shipping on a daily basis, and then I'll also handle the warehousing, which involves everything from pick pack into cycle counting to actually shipping small partial out the door.
What is cycle counting?
Cycle counting is how we keep track of our inventory. So we go in and what's that?
I said that question is more
so
for
cycle
me.
Counting.
I don't know.
Oh, okay, very well. Cycle counting is where you go in and keep track of your inventory. So
Okay.
we have many SKUs, as we talked about earlier. So it's keeping track of all those. At any given time, I'll have 700,000-800,000 units floating around in my warehouse. So we have to keep track of those, right? So there's how we keep track of those is we cycle counting. So we have folks that's what they do all day long, is go around and count inventory. And there's certain kind of standards that we put in place about things get counted on a regular cycle, and that cycle could be a month, or it could be a week, or it could be a year. So it just depends on how frequently a product is moving. So that's how we keep track of things. So that's what cycle counting is.
I see. So I know, I'm sure this depends on quantities or, how large an order is, but what does your turnaround time look like typically, for as an example?
Okay, so we have goods that sit on the shelf, and those can, if you place an order today, we can ship it today. So that's for our stocked inventory. So if you're looking for something that's unique, or you have a large volume order, something that's above 15, 20,000 units, that typically goes into our production process, and that's kind of based on current demand. It could be as little as 5 days. It could be as much as 30 days. It kind of depends on what our volume is that's running through the production process at that time.